Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
Today is Thursday, February 26, 2026. And we are looking at a document that I honestly think is going to set the tone for the entire tech sector for the rest of the year.
Oh, absolutely.
Yesterday, Snowflake dropped their Q4 2026 earnings report.
And dropped really feels like the right word here because the weight of this thing is just, it's substantial.
It really is. I mean, usually when we do these deep dives, we look at earnings reports to see if a stock is just going up or down, right? But this feels very different.
Yeah, it's a structural shift.
Exactly. We are looking at a company fundamentally trying to change how businesses operate. We're talking about $1.28 billion in revenue for the quarter.
Which is up 30% year over year.
Up 30%. But the number that I just can't get past, and I really want us to dig into this right away, is the remaining performance obligations, the RPO. It is sitting at $9.77 billion.
Nearly $10 billion in future commitments. It's a staggering number.
It is. But before we get too lost in the billions, I want to frame what we are doing for you listening today. We aren't just reading a balance sheet.
No, not at all.
We are pulling from their earnings press release, the earnings call transcript, with CEO Sridhar Ramaswamy and CFO Brian Robbins and their slide deck. And the mission today is to look at this as a case study.
A case study of a massive data infrastructure company trying to pull off a really difficult pivot.
Right. They want to go from being just the place where you park your data to becoming the actual control plane for the AI era.
That is the core thesis right there. Sridhar Ramaswamy is essentially betting the farm on this idea that Snowflake isn't just a warehouse anymore. It is the engine room.
So we're going to break down this explosion of what they call agentic AI. We're going to look at the single largest deal in the company's history, which is mind-blowing, and we're going to talk about the sticker shock problem with AI consumption and how they're trying to fix it.
Which is probably the most practical part of this whole discussion for anyone actually running a business right now.
Definitely. But let's start with the money, because $1.28 billion in revenue is great. Beating EPS expectations is great. They hit 32 cents versus the expected 27 cents.
Net revenue retention holding steady at 125%.
Also great. But the story here isn't the standard earnings beat. It's the whales.
The whales are definitely surfacing.
You mentioned to me before we started recording that there was one specific contract in the transcript that just defies logic. Walk me through that.
So in this quarter alone, Snowflake signed the largest deal in its history. It's a single contract with a total value of over $400 million.
Okay, wait, stop there. $400 million for software. I mean, I know enterprise software is expensive, but that is practically $500 million. Who signs that check?
Well, that's the thing.
What kind of conversation happens in a boardroom where you commit $400 million to one single vendor?
It's not an IT decision at that point. That is the key takeaway here. When you're signing a deal of that magnitude, it is a strategic partnership. It's the CEO, the CFO, the board of directors.
Everyone has to be aligned.
Exactly. And interestingly, this was not a new customer. This was an existing customer expanding their commitment.
So they already knew exactly what they were buying.
Right. And that tells you something huge about the stickiness of the platform.
Yeah.
You don't double down with $500 million if you're thinking about migrating away in a year or two.
No, you'd be looking for discounts, not expansions.
Exactly. This is a 5-year, maybe 10-year bet on infrastructure. They are effectively saying Snowflake is the foundation of our entire digital existence.
And it wasn't just this one massive outlier, right? The report mentions they signed 7 contracts worth over $100 million each just in this quarter.
7 9-figure deals. To give you some context on that, in Q4 of last year, they only signed 2.
Wow.
So we are seeing a massive acceleration in these mega deals. Enterprises are locking in.
But here's my question. We have been hearing about optimization for 2 solid years. Companies slashing budgets, firing people, cutting back on SaaS spend. How is Snowflake getting people to sign $100 million contracts in this economy?
Because the conversation has completely shifted. 2 years ago, the conversation was, how do we store this data cheaper?
Right.
Now, the conversation is, how do we survive the AI transition? These companies aren't buying storage anymore. They are buying a capability.
They're buying survival.
Literally, they believe that if they don't have their data architecture sorted out on a platform like Snowflake, they can't deploy AI. And if they can't deploy AI, they die.
So it's FOMO, fear of missing out.
I'd say it's existential risk, and that brings us right to the product pivot, because you can't sell $400 million contract just on fear. You have to sell a vision.
And Sridhar's vision is this concept of agentic AI.
Yes.
I saw that term all over the transcript, agentic,
Which
and sounds a bit sci-fi. We have had ChatGPT for a few years now. We have LLMs.
Sure.
What makes this agentic stuff so different? Is it just a rebrand?
No, it is a fundamental shift in architecture. Think of it this way. ChatGPT is a chatbot. You talk to it, it talks back. It's a poet or a summarizer.
Right.
It produces text.
Right. It answers questions.
But an agent does work. An agent doesn't just write a poem about a SQL query. It logs into the database, runs the query, finds the error, fixes the error, and then emails you to say it is done.
Okay, so the difference is action.
Precisely. Action and autonomy.
Yeah.
And that is what Snowflake is selling with things like Snowflake Intelligence and Cortex. They want to move enterprises from chatting with data to actually acting on data.
And people are buying it.
The adoption speed is wild. They have over 9,100 accounts using Snowflake AI features right now. Snowflake Intelligence went from basically a nascent offering to being used by 2,500 accounts in just 3 months.
They gave some examples in the report that I thought were really helpful to visualize this. There was a quote from a partner, Evolve Consulting.
Oh, the bulldozer quote.
Yes, they said, we used to use shovels to dig, and you just gave us bulldozers.
It's a great analogy. They claim they compressed 16 work weeks of coding work into less than a month using Cortex code, which is Snowflake's AI coding agent.
See, that is the kind of stat that makes me a little skeptical. 16 weeks into 4 weeks, it sounds like marketing fluff. Do we actually see this working in non-consulting environments? Like real-world, everyday companies?
We actually do. Look at the United Rentals example from the call. This one is fascinating because it's not about high-end software developers. It's about branch managers.
Right, the people out there renting out the excavators and scissor lifts.
Exactly. United Rentals has 1,600 branches. They're using a business intelligence agent that lets those frontline managers ask questions about their P&L, their fleet utilization, their operations, just in plain English.
So instead of waiting for a weekly report from corporate or logging into a complex dashboard, the manager just asks, why is my revenue down this week? And the agent digs through the data and tells them.
Yes. And because it is an agent, it might eventually be able to say, your revenue is down because these 3 excavators are down for maintenance. Should I go ahead and schedule a technician?
That is the leap.
It democratizes the data completely. It takes the insights out of the hands of these centralized data scientists and puts it directly in the hands of the guy running the shop floor. Toyota Motor Europe is doing something similar to revolutionize their operations, cutting agent deployment from months down to weeks.
That sounds incredible for companies like Toyota and United Rentals. But let's flip the lens to Snowflake itself. Because one of the most interesting parts of this earnings call was them talking about how they use this stuff internally. They call it eating their own dog food.
Or drinking their own champagne, depending on how fancy you want to be.
Let's stick with dog food for now. They made a claim that their internal sales agents, the ones automating research and outreach, are projected to save the equivalent of 90 full-time engineers this year alone.
Yeah, this is a critical data point to pay attention to.
But hold on. Equivalent of 90 engineers, does that mean they actually fired 90 people? Or is this that fuzzy productivity math where they say, oh, we save 10 minutes per person across the company, so that equals $1 million, but nobody actually sees the cash?
That is exactly the right question to ask. But look at the headcount numbers Brian Robbins provided. This is where the story gets very real.
Okay.
In Q4, Snowflake's product revenue grew 30%. In a traditional SaaS company, if you grow revenue 30%, your headcount usually has to grow by 20 or 25%. You just need bodies to support that kind of growth.
Right. You need more sales reps, more implementation teams, more support staff.
Snowflake's net headcount growth for the entire quarter was 37 people.
Oh, total.
Total, across the whole company globally. They had a small reduction in force, about 200 people, but net, they are essentially flat.
So they grew the business by hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue and added 37 people.
That is the agentic dividend right there. That is the proof that the dog food actually tastes good. They are explicitly decoupling revenue growth from headcount growth.
Because the agents are picking up the slack.
Exactly. It's not just sales either. In support, they improved response accuracy by 25% and reduced resolution times for site reliability investigations from hours to just minutes. In finance, they're using agents to catch out-of-policy travel and expenses, which is expected to save millions annually.
I honestly loved the detail in the transcript where Sridhar is just walking around showing off Snowflake intelligence on his phone to every CXO he
It's
meets.
the magic trick factor.
Yeah, it proves it works in real time. But if you're an investor, that headcount stat is incredibly bullish. If you're a mid-level manager wondering about your job security, that is terrifying.
It is the stark reality of the AI era. Efficiency is the new growth metric.
Mm.
But there is a flip side to this whole agents doing the work narrative. And it is something that usually scares the hell out of CFOs. We need to talk about sticker shock.
Yes. I saw negative sentiment related to consumption risk flagged in the source material. Break that down for us. Why does using an agent create risk for a company's budget?
Okay, so Snowflake charges by consumption. You pay for the compute power you use. When you run a standard SQL query, you know it takes maybe 5 seconds. It costs a fraction of a cent. It is highly predictable. AI agents, however, are chatty. They loop. They iterate. Let's say you ask an agent to fix the formatting on 1,000 messy files.
Yeah.
The agent might try one way, fail, try another way, fail, and just keep trying. It enters a loop,
Like an infinite loop.
potentially. Or just a very expensive, productive loop. If you have thousands of employees utilizing these agents, and those agents are churning through massive amounts of compute in the background without you seeing it, you could wake up on Monday morning with a bill that is 10 times higher than you expected.
It's like leaving the faucet on, but the water is liquid gold.
And the faucet is a supercomputer.
Yes.
This is the consumption risk. And for a while, this was a major barrier to adoption across the industry. CFOs were saying, I am not turning this on. I cannot budget for a black box.
So how is Snowflake fixing that? Because they can't just tell CFOs to trust them.
They are introducing hard governance controls. Per user caps. Account level caps.
Like a credit limit.
Exactly like a credit limit. You can set a budget for your marketing team's AI agent. You have $500 this month. If you hit it, the agent simply stops working until you approve more funds.
That seems pretty simple, but I guess it is absolutely crucial if you want mass adoption.
It is a massive strategic differentiator for them. Think about this standard subscription model like ChatGPT Enterprise or Microsoft Copilot. You pay $30 a month per user. It is a flat fee.
Very safe for the CFO.
Right, but it is capped in power. You get what you get. Snowflake is trying to offer the best of both worlds here. They are saying, we will give you the unlimited power of consumption-based AI, so if you need a bulldozer for an hour, you can pay for it. But we will give you the safety brakes of a subscription model, so you don't go broke.
It's safe scalability.
Exactly. And speaking of safety, we really have to talk about the acquisition they just made. They spent around $600 million to buy a company called Observe.
Observe. Just from the name, I assume it watches things.
It is an observability platform. Now, usually this software is for monitoring servers, like is the server up, is the database running slow? But in the context of AI, this acquisition is fascinating.
Why is it different for AI?
Because debugging an AI agent is not like debugging a normal computer program.
How so?
Normal software is deterministic. If A, then B. If it breaks, an engineer can look at the code and see exactly where the logic failed. It is black and white.
Right.
AI is probabilistic. It is constantly making guesses. If an agent hallucinates, if it gives you the wrong answer, or just makes up a fact, there isn't a line of code you can point to and say, there is the bug. It is a behavioral issue.
So how do you fix a behavior?
You have to watch it. You have to monitor the inputs, the outputs, the context of the conversation. You need a massive amount of telemetry data on how the AI is behaving to spot patterns of failure. That is exactly what Observe does. It handles that massive volume of machine data.
So Snowflake bought them because they realized that if they are going to sell fleets of agents, they also need to sell the CCTV system to watch those agents.
Ideally, yes. First, it opens up a whole new market for them. The IT operations market is worth like $50 billion. Yeah. But more importantly, it makes their core AI product viable. You cannot deploy a fleet of bulldozers if you don't have anyone watching where they're driving.
That makes perfect sense. It's all pieces of the same puzzle. The data is there, the agents are there, and now the monitoring is there.
And the AI models themselves are there too. We haven't even touched on the partnerships yet, but the call highlighted that Anthropic, OpenAI, and Google Gemini are all available natively inside Snowflake.
They called this the zero copy concept, right?
Yes, zero copy.
Honestly, that sounds a bit like marketing buzzspeak. Zero copy. It sounds like something a brochure would say.
It does sound like BuzzSpeak, I'll give you that. But it solves a massive friction point for enterprises. Think about how you usually use an LLM like OpenAI. You have your proprietary customer data in a secure database. You want to analyze it. You have to export that data. sanitize it, upload it to OpenAI's cloud, run the analysis, and then bring the answers back.
Which is a security nightmare.
It is a security nightmare, it is a compliance nightmare, and it just takes too much time. Zero copy means you do not move the data. You bring the model to the data. The data never leaves Snowflake's encrypted perimeter. The model comes in, does the work, and leaves.
So if I'm a bank, I can run GPT-4 on my most sensitive financial records without ever actually sending those records to OpenAI's servers.
Correct. And that is exactly why Sridhar calls Snowflake the control plane. You control the data. You just lease the intelligence.
I see. That connects right back to that $400 million deal. If I am a global bank or a healthcare company, I can't just upload patient records to ChatGPT. But I can do this.
Exactly. It's really the only way for highly regulated industries to play in the AI space safely.
So looking ahead, let's look at their guidance. They guided for fiscal year 2027, product revenue around $5.66 billion, representing 27% growth.
It's remarkably steady.
It is. But I want to go back to a thought you triggered earlier before we wrap up. We talked about how agents are going to do the actual work. We talked about how the data stays firmly in Snowflake. And we talked about how the governance and monitoring are now in Snowflake too.
Right.
If the data is in Snowflake and the logic the agent is in Snowflake and the governance is in Snowflake, what happens to all the applications we use? Like, do we even need Salesforce? Do we need Workday? Or does Snowflake eventually just become the operating system for the entire enterprise?
That is the truly provocative question coming out of this earnings report. If the intelligence lives directly with the data, the application layer, the UI, the buttons you click on a screen start to look very thin, maybe even unnecessary.
Right. Why do I need to log into a CRM interface if I can just tell my Snowflake agent, update the customer record, and send them a renewal email?
It challenges the entire SaaS business model we have known for the last 15 years. We are moving from a world of apps to a world of data plus agents. And Snowflake is positioning itself to be the bedrock of that new world.
It's a bold play, and it explains why they are resisting that old data warehouse label so hard.
They are fighting it tooth and nail. And honestly, with $9.7 billion in RPO and massive customers doubling down, it looks like the market is starting to believe their new narrative.
Well, it is certainly a report that changes how you look at the sector. It is not just about rows and columns of data anymore. It is about bulldozers and control planes.
It really is.
We have covered the whale deals, the agentic pivot, the incredible efficiency engine they're building, and the governance solution to sticker shock. I think the takeaway for everyone listening is pretty clear. The tools are here. The barrier to entry to build this AI stuff has dropped to almost zero. The question is, are you still digging with a shovel?
Or are you ready to pay for the bulldozer?
Exactly. Something for you to think about as you review your own data strategy this week. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. Keep your data clean, keep your agents monitored, and we will catch you on the next one.
Thanks for listening, everyone.